Welcome back, and a quick note before we begin. This podcast was recorded just under 2 weeks ago, and thus was prior to the reveal of the Sanguinary Guard that have put some part of the community in uproar, including myself. I did a whole video on how I think the designs are very, very bad. I just want to give it some timing and context. We do mention the Inquisitor model, that kind of really times where this was at. And yeah, we discuss all of that and more, and it becomes even more, I guess, relevant in the second half of this podcast, where we talk about how 40k's identity is somewhat lacking. So look forward to that in the second half of the podcast, just so you know, if you're wondering where the 40k has lost its edge convo is. Enough waffling, onto the episode. Hello and welcome back to PK's War Room, the podcast with a name that is really bad, but we're 8 episodes in now, so I'm just sticking with it. Today, you've got a special episode. You're joined by two Vinces. Good Vince, bad Vince. Which one is which? Well, I guess we'll find out over the course of the next hour and a half. Hello, Vince Venturella. I meant to check with you before we started. Did I nail it?
You nailed it. And I have a strong suspicion as to who the bad Vince is. Don't worry. But yes, you nailed it. Perfect. Much better than most British pronunciations of my name. British people and Italian names don't traditionally go together.
They do not. They do not. You have a much cooler surname than me. Mine is painfully British with Chandler, which is like, I think it's like Old English for like candlestick maker or Thatcher or something. It's really not exciting.
Sure.
Well, you've got like a poetic name with Vincent Venturella. It's like, so, you know, the double V is strong.
It has fostered a lifelong love of me for alliteration. Yes, without
absolutely.
A doubt.
So, Vincent Venturella, I'm going to call you Vince for the rest of this episode now, which is a weird thing to do because I'm so not used to it. For people who don't know who you are, for people who come across from the magic side and stuff like that, please tell us an elevator pitch, if you will. Who are you?
Absolutely. I'm Vince Venturella. I am a miniature painter and nerd, all-around nerd enthusiast. I have a channel under my name. If you just look for Vince Venturella, everywhere fine Vince Venturellas are sold, you will find me on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and such. I have been teaching people how to paint for about 10 years. I have been playing Warhammer for 25, 26 years. I've been playing Magic for 30 years, and I've been playing D&D for 35 years. And my passion is basically talking about Warhammer, especially Age of Sigmar. But I've played all forms of Warhammer stuff. Everything, all of them, all the things I've done.
To let people know where we're going with this episode. So if you've heard AOS, and you know that I'm on an AOS kick because you've heard me talk about it on socials too, don't worry, the episode's not going to be exclusively AOS. We will, I believe, this is my impression at least, that other Vince is going to give us some perhaps hot takes or some sort of feelings around and vibes around 40k. And we're going to talk about comparing the two games as well and some of the things I think that 40k could learn from its younger... It's so weird that fantasy is kind of like the older, canonically, in lore.
The older, younger one?
Yeah. It's like kind of facelift. It's like your older brothers come home with liposuction and somehow its rules it's tighter in places that you didn't know you can get tighter.
Perhaps from its nephew, right? Because it had a brother. That brother had a kid. That kid is AOS nephew.
And on the birth of that child, the brother was slain. Only to be to be necromantically brought back to life years later for money,
right.
for old people to throw money at. Well, yeah,
that all sounds accurate.
A tale as old as time itself. So what have you been up to recently? So you, other than paint, well, actually, I want to talk about this. You've been painting a lot of Skaven, right?
Yeah. Slowly. I paint very slowly. I'm trying to paint my Skaven to sort of display quality. But I've been making good progress. I got my first 10 clan rats done. That was very exciting.
That's ogres, right?
They take about
the ogres earlier.
Yeah, I've got my rat ogre unit done. I'm working on my big shooty warp blastery thing, whatever, I don't know what that thing is called. The new gun thing that comes in the box. Basically, yeah, it sounds right. Silly GW names are never something I worry too much about, going all the way back to the beginning.
The problem with current Skaven stuff is that the names are too normal. Like, Warp Blaster is absolutely normal. It's not like a low gothic sort of nonsense name, right? The Skaven are pretty good at that, like Lightning Thrower, Warp Blaster. I guess Jezzail's is a bit weird. I don't know where that comes from. But
all very on the nose compared to like anything in Stormcast, which are all completely interchangeable. And forgettable.
They're so forgettable that
the recrucialators or whatever.
It's so bad.
Sure,
and
why
then
not?
it happens with Primaris stuff as well. They're all called just like weird adjectives. Like that's like the thing. Are you painting up the spearhead first? Is that a plan to complete the spearhead, then move on from there?
sort of that, like, not that wasn't my original intention, but it has kind of accidentally worked out that way, just because of so the way I paint when I want to do something very serious. I'm trying to do an army. Is I have to eat my meat before I can have any pudding,
Sure.
right? So, effectively, I will paint some number of clan rats, and then as a reward for myself, I get to paint something fun, like the Warp Blaster or a hero or whatever, right? So then I have to do another pack of clan rats and then a fun thing, and then another pack of clan rats and then a fun thing. And the clan rats are to do like 5 of them is about 40 hours of work, right? So you're talking about, so I have to put in like a work week before I'm allowed to do the fun thing. That's basically how I alternate and stay motivated to
So
keep
you
going.
you are. So I think I don't know. Am I a slow painter? I feel like I am because I spend like an hour or two on like a horde mode troop, like an orc boy or a rat, and some of my friends think I'm fucking insane for that. And you've just said, did you say 30 to 40 hours per clan rat?
No, it's 6 hours for a clan rat. It's about 30 hours for
Oh,
five
that
of
makes a
them,
lot
right?
more sense. That makes a lot more sense. I know you're painting it to quite a high standard, right? You're painting it way above
Yeah.
the tabletop. I'll put some images on screen as we talk about like some of your Skaven and some of the footage and stuff. But this isn't the beginning of your Skaven army, right? You own a lot of Skaven.
No. So many, like 12, 13,000 points of Skaven, yes. Most of which will be retired.
Okay.
I won't get rid of them or throw them in the trash, but they will be shuffled off. My office, as you can see, as I'm sure people know, if anybody's watched the show, they know I have like all my stuff behind me here. And you can just see the edge of it, but if you see this brown thing here, this is a giant case full of more armies,
Sure.
basically. And eventually, over time, what happens is armies get retired, and then they find their way over to my other room, my museum of old and sad armies. Although sometimes they can suddenly get resurrected. Like my Tomb Kings are over there, my Bretonnians are over there, all still square based and stuff. Who knew that suddenly, recently, they would be a new life would be granted, but they will shuffle
Your
over
old
there.
Skaven is waiting for the day that they re-release Age of Sigmar 2.0 in 15 years, right? For the nostalgia
Right,
crowd or whatever.
right. And to be fair, that is the second time I completely collected and then got rid of a Skaven army. So I bought my original Skaven army in 98, and then I replaced it in like 2012 or 13 or somewhere in that area. And so now I'm doing it again.
So do you still have all the 98
98
Skaven? I assume it's all metal stuff, right?
I sold most of them to pay for. It was all metal. Yes, you are correct. I sold most of them to pay for the new iteration, as it were, like the move to plastics, exempting stuff that like just made sense to keep because it was still the same thing. So, for example, the what is his name? Archpriest Nurglich or whatever his name was. The Pestilence named priest.
He's gone now, right?
He came
He's
out
like-
in. He is gone now, finally. But he was released in January 1994. So he celebrated his 30th anniversary before he was retired.
Right, so he's up there
probably
with like,
older than some of your
warp
viewers.
spiders and stuff like that. Those units that are like classic old, right? So fill me in here because you are an AOS head, right? And so for people who are joining us shortly because you're from Vince's side or whatever, AOS is something I've just recently got into. Started getting to it at the end of third with Blades of Khorne. RIP to their rules. Pretty sad about that. We'll talk about that later. So fill me in, Mr. High Priest Nurglich, whatever his name is. Was he in AOS 3? Yeah.
But not as a named character. He had just become the model for like the generic plague priest on
Right,
foot.
which we're definitely getting a resculpt for. Like, there's no two ways about it, right? Like, they don't have a foot priest right now.
I have to believe
There's two priests, and they're both like 250 points each.
340 and 360.
Okay, they're well over 300. It's crazy. And of course, they also they squatted clan rats to reveal them a week later. They squatted Giselles to reveal them a week later. So I'm assuming a lot of the stuff on that squatted list, because if people don't know, they shit canned a lot of Skaven stuff. Assuming a lot of it's gonna get new plastic kits, because it does seem like GW love giving us AOS kits right now. Because 40k is getting no love. Have you seen the new Inquisitor? Have you seen it?
I saw him. Yes.
Christ, I feel bad for the design team on the GW side, because on the 40k side, I feel like they must be stifled in some way by like corporate mandate and like red tape and stuff, because they seem to have none of the fun that the AOS team have. It's really, really strange to me.
So I'll break that into two parts as my quick answer.
Sure.
One, with that figure, like obviously it's not great. I always am reticent because like artists
Yeah,
work on this and they
absolutely.
put their heart and soul into this stuff, and I don't want to like bash somebody, right? But like, admittedly, sculpts can be either appeal to you or not, and I think that in general the community has said this one does not appeal to us. I think that is a fair read of the
It
room.
has become a downward mimetic spiral. I agree. Like people are exaggerating it quite badly. I defended it on first glance, and then
Yeah, they'll pile
yeah,
on.
absolutely, absolutely. So continue. Sorry.
You're fine. And so like, but keep in mind, you have to bring in, not everybody on the team is Darren Latham or Seb or whatever.
Sure.
They're just people who have sculpted for like literally their entire careers and who are 20 plus years in and have unbelievable, like histories and talents. Sometimes you do have to bring in new talent. You do have to have good succession planning. You do have to recruit new people, and that could be a training figure or someone's newer figure, and maybe they were trying something different and it didn't quite work out. So I always try to be forgiving of stuff like that, right? That's now on the broader point you're making, 1,000% that is the case. I absolutely believe that to sculpt 40K, like I think it takes a certain type of person. So what I mean is, if you have like this deep reverence and love for the classic sculpts and like everything that came out of the 90s and stuff like that, and the history of GW is very rich to you and those things mean a lot to you, and you're a sculptor, then I think you're fine. You're basically just sculpting updated versions, your own take on those things, and you're playing within a very confined space, right? But if you're sculpting for AOS, you just suddenly get a docket, I'm guessing. Like, again, I've never been sat in the room with them, but like you get a docket, a directive that says, we're going to do fish elves now, and they're going to have sharks and crap. Make that happen. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And you've got like a write-up from the lore team with like some basic information. You've got some digital art from the digital art team, of course, that came across of like a guy riding a giant narwhal unicorn eel, and you're like, yeah, okay, let's do this, and you just go nuts, right? So I would say if it was me, I think you get to have a lot more, we'll call it creative freedom on the AOS side.
You do raise a good point that obviously people don't really consider, is that there's a collaboration between like concept artistry and stuff like that. So to say that everyone on the AOS sculpting team has like free reign is obviously not necessarily true as such. But there is a lot of creative liberties that can be taken in a space that is like arguably still experiment. AOS is one big experiment from start to finish, right, over the last like 9 years or whatever. So like to go sort of tie those points together, I don't want to like completely dump all over the new Cotiaz model, because I feel like it's technically accomplished in the sense that like GW stuff tends to look clean and good, right? There's just obviously some very strange choices that kind of work from like an IP perspective. Like as an example, I'll put it on screen for people to see here. His inquisitorial image has been changed into like a big belt buckle that just reads a lot stronger for like the iconography for the faction or whatever. These things feel like things that are just like mandated points that need to be made. His cape's been pulled down, so you've got a lovely shoulder pad to paint a certain color or whatever. Like things like that. So I just wonder if, because 40K is it's the big boy, it's the money maker, right? It's the thing that they really don't want to fuck up. I assume there's a lot more oversight, whether it be corporate or whether it just be a lot of fingers in the same pie. And then on top of all that, what can you really do with a man in a suit of armor? You've got to differentiate him from a marine. That's like a thing you've got to do. So yeah, but on top of all that, it's not just the AOS 40K divide, right? If you see like Necromunda's constantly getting crazy and weird shit, because again,
that's where they get to just go wild on the 40 on the within the 40K universe more broadly construed, right? The Necromunda stuff is just, I mean, crazy. Like obviously, I think the designers there's probably some good and bad to catching the assignment for like the Underworld Warband or the Warcry Warband or the Necromunda thing or whatever, right? Because on one hand, you're just much less constrained. You get to be, I'm assuming, much more free, because I bet those have less pre-work done as well, to your point, to sort of small c conservatism, right? Like they're not gonna re-release Eldar or something or whatever. Like you pick your mainline thing, right? Like whatever, and suddenly have it be just like a complete 180 divergence from what it looked like before, or even 90 degrees. It's going to be like 4 degrees off.
We saw
of
with the
squats,
right? This is a weird one that I talk about every episode. And I'm sorry if you guys are fucking bored of me saying this, but I feel like the squats. I feel like the Model Line launch was like botched heavily because like it felt so safe. Because it's like marine adjacent almost. Like obviously they're using like different shapes and stuff. They've got this like what's sort of like hexagonal angles to their armor and stuff, and they're smaller.
Yeah.
But, like it feels so much the like don't let it veer too much from the design sensibilities that we know and love. Where like you said with AOS, it'll be like, how about if these are tree people and there's a man or woman riding a giant beetle bug, and they're like, yeah, that works for us. Like it's so wildly out there every time. Like look, I mean we're years off from it, but I'm looking back a lot at AOS because I'm getting into it so much. But like Night Haunts launching, and it's just like ghost carriages and like the haunted draped face up on a throne and all these things that again, even with the launch of a new faction in 40k, they still erred on the side of caution, which is it's a good thing in some ways. You don't want to ruin the cake with some sour eggs or whatever, but I do wish the squats were a bit more out there of like space trains and air blimps and stuff. But
yeah, sure. I mean, I like their vehicles. They're cool. They were neat vehicles. I think it was my favorite part of the release. The models themselves felt very like, other than Santa Claus, who I thought was a really cool model. I like Santa Claus.
Is he the one who's got the floating? I never built or painted any of them because I was so disappointed. He's the one with the little floating robot head men as well.
Yeah. He's got little friends. Yeah. I assume they're his elves. I don't know the backstory. And so like I assume that's how he delivers presents. But like all in all, it just is a natural. It's a thing that is going to be much safer, quote unquote, as it is, right? It just has to be. The audience has much different expectations. They expect the same thing, and so you like, here's the thing, man. So. You don't come over to the cons in the U.S. We got to get you over.
I do plan to be. Maybe next year. I'm hoping to hit some of the big ones.
Good. Well, I'll see you in person then. We're gonna hang out. It's gonna be a great time. So, but at any rate, in these cons they do these big reveal shows, and last year's was like really terrible. They locked us in a room for an hour and a half in a sweltering room and played a video with a bunch of people talking. It was a nightmare. Anyways, but I've never felt more like a prisoner. Like it was awful. But at any rate, in there, at some point in one of these videos that I was sitting in this room, they revealed Marines that had like jump packs, I guess, or something. Sure. I think they were jump packs.
Probably the assault packs and intercessors, right? That they were just the replacement for the assault Marines. Yeah.
Sure, why not? I don't know.
The I really 40K can't began.
I cannot explain to you a concept I find more boring than Space Marines writ large. But at any rate, that came up on the screen, and I was like, okay, looks neat enough. Like, cool, it's a Space Marine with a backpack, and he can zip around, I assume. The room went wild. Okay, this is like thousands of people in this room, and the room was like, oh my god, this is the craziest thing we've ever seen. Our minds are blown, our imaginations are stretched, our reality is shattered. And I was just like, wow. You people have some really low expectations.
I mean, that must have been a watershed moment for your understanding of the Warhammer community. You're like, oh, all of this, it all just falls into line. You're like, oh, it all makes sense now.
It really was. The pieces sort of fell together. The penny dropped, and I was like, oh, yeah, these people don't want out of their game what like I want out of the game, or what I want out of AOS, or whatever, right? Because I love when they take big, crazy, insane swings. Like, I love models that are wild and that are imaginative. Because in the end, look, we play other games and are familiar with other fantasy properties. AOS even, and 40k, and Warhammer writ large will always be more constrained, less interesting, less dynamic, less versatile than something like Magic or D&D. And the reason for that is because of the effort that it takes to create the thing, right? So it's not a judgment, it's just a fact. Like, Magic is going to do, we're doing funny, fun animal set, and then we're going to go do a horror set, and we'll have art that's crazy there, and there's secret layers that are like, these are now, Transformers are now Magic cards, or like whatever, right? Like, it's the Panoply, yeah? Because the effort it takes is you pay an artist to draw the thing. That's not no effort, but it's not huge, right? D&D is the same thing. Like, you can just be like, yeah, this is what we're playing now. It's we all have spaceships, and some of the spaceships are alive and some of them aren't, and you visit planets in an astral sea and can go other places. And by the way, there's space whales, and also there's space clowns and talking psychic bugs and like whatever else the person thought of on the bender they were on that weekend, right? Because all they had to do was like write some text and pay an artist to visualize some of it, not even all of it, right? It's because it lives in your imagination more than it lives in anything else. But with Warhammer, it has to be physical stuff, so it's always going to be like fantasy for babies, because it will never be as like as imaginative, as far-reaching, as sort of like as the full world of sci-fi fantasy would allow.
There's an interesting point to that, is that there is a big talking point in the Magic community, especially amongst the more disenfranchised and stuff, that Magic, its tone is all over the place and it struggles to have like a consistent canon of its own. Now, there's arguments both ways, and I agree with in some cases and not others. So, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse in a way that Warhammer is so consistent. Like looking at 40k, I guess, at least.
Sure.
Because, like I said, it's an IP that sells books and sells toys, and they want to keep that IP selling books and toys. It's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? There's a weird gloss over it where it can't get too freaky and weird, like even if you've got like James Gunn at the helm or whatever. So I guess we sit here and we mock, I say mock, we playfully mock the basicness, I was going to say basic bitchness, but it's a bit harsh. The basicness of the new Cortiaz model. But then you tell the anecdote of everyone losing their minds over jetpack marines, and you're like, well, that is kind of what everyone wants in a way. Like another example of it, I guess, is like Stilt Man. You know, they released an AdMech model that was on stilts, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was like, this is 40k. I can imagine John Blanche painting this. I can imagine it being looking. I see it in a white dwarf at the age of 9. And I'm just like, this is like the dumbest but coolest thing I've ever seen. But like the community just ragged on it, and it's gone down as like one of the silliest models in a long time. And I'm like, but like 40k deserves a bit of silliness. It deserves a bit of like over the topness. Because like you're saying, it's like fantasy for babies. But one of the defining factors for Warhammer for me growing up was just how over the top it was. Like nothing else.
Absolutely.
But we don't. Well, we do and we don't get that. And but yeah.
I mean, Blanche's art, which is absolutely instrumental in the formation of my love of Warhammer and frankly a lot of the genre in general, is so much wilder in toto than like what you actually see in the miniatures, right? Like his art is just generally full of weirdos. It's just a bunch of like, and that's true like in his fantasy work as well as his sci-fi work. It's just full of like creepy, dirty, like modified, chopped up, sacrifice themselves for some greater power weirdos. And it's always been just like so weird and grimdark and stuff like that. And I love it, but it is rare that you see that thing translate actually into the miniatures in a
I think Necromunda comes closest in a lot of ways, both classically and now. Like actually, I say classically, it was more punk rock, more 2000 AD, right? And then in the modern era, they probably veered more closer towards Blanche's stilt walkers with mechanical tits, or that sounds a bit derivative, but like that's the kind of thing that we see. Like the news, that's the funny thing. Like we've got like Tyranid models in the new Necromunda thing of like new strains of gene stealers and humans with like bits of gene stealer, and that we're not even getting that in 40k because again they just But anyway, so we're getting into the weeds of 40k models. Maybe that's not where we want to be. So to back on track then, you're slowly getting through your Skaven. Have you got anything coming up? Are you competing? Because you compete in painting, right? A lot.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so have you got competitions coming up? Are you aiming towards anything?
Yeah, here next weekend I actually have models I need to take to a painting competition. So this weekend is largely focused, because I'm going to Gen Con and there'll be a painting competition there, so I've got to get my stuff all ready. As well as all my models for teaching my classes, because I'm teaching there too. Then I have another one about a month after that at Nova, and then I'm going over to Monte Sansevino in November.
Oh, yes, I think I heard you mention that in... I guess Trapped Under Plastic was probably the last time I heard you talk about the because that's Italy, right? It's your first time...
It's in Italy, yeah. First time going over there, so it should be very exciting.
Okay, are you finished? Are you ready?
I mean, I have stuff. It's never as much as you want, but I have my things. I'm fairly happy with what I've got. They need a little more time and love, but I can put that in this weekend. No big deal.
You're very like you're a confident man in general, but like it's just the way you're like no big deal. Like, some people would be sweating it, some people would be stressing, and you're like, yeah, well, you know.
I mean, I've competed in a lot of
Sure.
competitions every year for almost 10 years. So, like, after a while, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not, I don't invest all of my heart and soul into any one competition. Like, they will exist, they will happen, the awards will be what they are, and then life will move on.
So,
right?
yeah.
Like, and then there will be another one, and another one, and another one.
So in some ways,
as DJ Khaled would say,
yeah,
another
the great
one.
prophet that is. So are you more the competing side of painting then? I get the vibe, at least, from your attitude towards it, that like just going to win is not necessarily even the aim. Obviously, you'd like to win and you enter with some confidence and such, but like, is it like a community thing? Is it like the love of the hobby, the love of the paint?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I try to do well, and I have won awards for both play and paint, but my focus, if I had to choose, is 100% on the paint side. Like, I'll take an army that I think is less competitive if I think it's better painted or I like the models more. In the end, I'm very much focused on, like, when I'm going to play at like a tournament or something, I want to bring the army I want to bring, that I like the models, that I was happy to paint, that I'm going to have fun piloting for that weekend. I'm not going to sit there and play Warhammer for 20 hours or something, right? And not like, and bring something I think is crap. Or that I don't have.
So
fun
on the
playing.
topic of
Like,
playing, then you aren't min-maxing your lists. You aren't on like 120 of the same unit. What's the Ogre Moor tribes thing at the moment? I saw someone saying that you can play the same unit like 90 times, something stupid, and the points costs.
oh, I'm sure with ogres it's just like gluttons, a bunch of
Yeah.
gluttons, because they're very powerful objective holders, and so like that's like,
That isn't you then.
So no, and look. Whenever anything new comes out, like when you get a drop like this, so the indices dropped for AOS not too long ago, and you have to understand that, like, that's such an immense amount of information that dropped on people, because you have the new rules, the new game, and completely new rules, like completely new for every army, right? Okay, so when you get, it's no different than building your a new commander deck with a new set that comes out, right? What I mean by that is, like, you start with the simplest, smoothest brain take that you can, and because you don't understand the depth, the nuance, the complexity, and all of that, like, things evolve over time, right? And so, like, when you first look at it, if you look at it and go, ghost ponies are good, or ogres seem like they hold stuff well, gluttons or whatever, right? Easiest thing to do is just go copy paste, copy paste, right? And hope it's good enough, because it doesn't require the nuanced understanding of the interactions in the entire system and all that.
You don't play a control deck into a new metagame. So, like, let's say, I guess indexes dropping in Warhammer is similar to rotation in Magic, except it's more extreme. So, in Magic, for those of you that are completely Warhammer people here and you don't know what this wonderful game on my chest is, in Standard, you have this thing that, like, sets rotate out. So you have used to be 2 years or so. It's now 5 years or something stupid. It's ridiculous. But a period of Magic is legal in Standard. It's not my favorite way of playing Magic, but it does create this interesting thing where the metagame constantly shifts as things get rotated out and new things enter. And thus you have an evolving metagame that is a evolving puzzle to be solved. And obviously, when a new set drops and 3 sets drop out, you don't know what's good. So you don't go in and play the deck that looks to control other people's decks and hold all the answers to the questions. You instead look to ask questions. So you play like the red deck, the burn deck, the aggro deck.
Right.
And that's similar to, I guess, what we're
Good
seeing.
old red deck wins. Always
exactly.
the
If you
popular.
can curve out and shoot someone for 20 damage over 5 or 6 turns, you're probably going to win a game of Magic or 2, right? So that's kind of like what I never really thought of it in this case with indexes. You just spam the very easy thing that is the question as opposed to the answer.
Exactly. It's not. There's nothing like that nefarious or unusual or even like bad about it.
Oh,
it
no,
just
not at
is
all.
the sort of thing that people
I don't
do.
judge people for doing it. I was just laughing at the idea. Like, you're saying how you take the best painted army you
Yeah.
own, and I'm like, so you're not the guy min-maxing like triple Wraith Knight or like Harem of Wraith Ponies. It is. Let's touch on that for a moment then, because we're quite like naturally veering to AOS. There's some stats from this weekend just gone. So time of recording, AOS 4 has had its rules out for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think we're coming to. This probably comes out maybe at the point where the rules have been out for 3 to 4 weeks sort of thing. So the first GTs and RTTs and stuff have been played. And basically the ghosts appear to be too good because they got like a 77% win rate or something insane. But of course,
something crazy off of people need to look up the term statistical significance. But yes, continue.
well, yes, because like the sample size is an issue, who's playing it is an issue, and then the bit that like Rob over at Honest Wargame was tweeting about like today or yesterday is that like no one really knows how to even play the game yet. Like there's still discussions about how manifestations actually work involving the movement phase and charge phase. So the idea of like saying this is definitely a problem isn't fair. In the same way that, like I said, you mentioned ghost ponies, right? It's their ponies that are the problem. Those might not be that good once people understand like the best move blocking units in the game or the way to mess with the movement phase and similar.
Yeah, I am of two minds on this. One, Nighthaunt is definitely too good. Like I didn't need the stats to know that. Okay, the stats are irrelevant to my knowledge of that.
For the idiots at home, what is making them too good right now?
Sure, happy to explain. So, as by the way, as a grounding, like I have been playing AOS 4 for longer than the week and a half it's been out because of the nature of this stuff. So like I'm probably 21, 22 games in, and I've played Nighthaunt many times. It was one of my regular opponents that we were playing with. He played Nighthaunt many times. So I think I've gotten like 4 games in against him. And I don't think I've ever really made it past turn 2 or 3 against Nighthaunt, no matter the army I was rolling with. What makes them so good? Sure. In AOS 4, what makes you good is when you can break expectations and not actual cheating, but you know what I mean. Cheat the rules. Except like when you have strong exception-based design that allows you to operate in ways that it is very difficult for your opponent to compensate for. So hence you can stop them from achieving their objectives, and it becomes very hard for them to stop you from achieving yours. Nighthaunt does all of this exceptionally well. Their points cost are relatively low. The entire army is ethereal. The entire army flies, has a huge movement advantage, is very fast, does not suffer from any of the weapon abilities, which are the new special thing most units get, i.e. anti-infantry this, anti-infantry that, anti-cavalry this, because if you get pluses to rend, guess what? They don't take that. They're ethereal. They don't suffer bonus penalties to save. They can go to a 5-up ward, pretty easily responsive. They have a unit that can teleport off turn in both movement phases, and so is basically impossible to ever catch or touch. They can score you battle tactics like crazy. That 120 point, 130 point unit is worth 12 battle tactic points over the course of a game, which is absolutely insane. 12 out of 50 points out of a 130 point unit that you effectively never risk losing is wild. They can recur like crazy, so even if you do manage to do damage to them, they will simply bring their entire force back with relatively little effort. They are incredibly high damaging for what they can do. They can debuff and penalize the living crap out of you to make sure that your force does absolutely nothing and is neutered, which is especially bad in a game where almost everybody is on force to hit now for a lot of entire armies and forces. Being able to pass out neg 1 to hit like candy makes it very easy. They can also punish saves, make you strike last, all sorts of other things they can do. So they play the battle tactics game well. They play the sort of trick game well. They actually are very scary in combat. They're strong on objectives. As before mentioned, the Ghost Ponies have a higher than normal objective control for reasons I cannot begin to fathom or understand, other than a misprint.
Is it just all
they recur, so even if you kill them, it doesn't matter.
OC, right?
Nope. All the other cav are 1. They're the only 2. For reasons I can't explain.
I thought I'd played with some cav that were 2. I thought like the corn ones were 2.
If you have 5 wound cavalry, they can be 2. So like big pigs and the skull crushers.
So the convention is if you're big,
but that's because they're heavy cav. Heavy cav can be 2 because they're like 5 wounds.
So the laundry list sounds like it's going to keep going. So they've got to have downsides.
They literally have every advantage and no weaknesses. Oh, also the entire army can run, retreat, and charge every round, no matter what. Always. Without penalty. So they are blindingly fast, impossible to hold, and impossible to stop. They can charge you in combat with you. They're the only army that can do that. If they're in combat with you, they still get to declare a charge. They can literally charge over top of you to units behind you because they fly. They are breathtakingly busted sideways.
Oh wow.
I think they're 70%. If you want my real opinion, here's my hot take. That 70% is people not knowing how to play them properly. If you had actual skilled pilots piloting that in anything else, and you removed mirror matches where they naturally have a 50% win rate, i.e. Nighthaunt against Nighthaunt, right? They would easily be an 80% win rate army. Easily. They would be so broken sideways, it wouldn't be tolerable for even a couple weeks. It's only the ignorance of most of the players piloting them as to how to actually get the full value out of them that is the reason they're doing as quote-unquote poorly as they are.
So it sounds like although the stats obviously tell a limited story, you think the limited story goes the other way, which is interesting. Is there
Correct.
no other?
Yeah, you have to assume that you like people talking about that is like, oh, it could be better than it is. Well, that's not necessarily true. It could be far worse than it is.
So is there no other
right?
faction that even compares then?
There are other factions that I think are also on that top end of the power curve, but that also like those have a lot of those tend to have fairly high skill floors, and that matters a lot in the early part of the edition because like high skill floor, high skill ceiling, it's your control example, right? Like ultimately, if control is sort of in ascendancy potential because of the card pool that's out there in Magic, right? Then that's an interesting situation to be in because the skill floor on control is really high. Right? Like when do you use your counters? When do you use your resources? When do you expend your limited resources to achieve success? If you can do it right, you'll beat anybody. If you can't, you lose. And so it's like it becomes the player more than the cards. It's the same way for this. There's several armies like Cruel Boys that are very, very powerful, but they have a very high skill floor in using their limited resources correctly.
For the people at home who haven't seen it, Cruel Boys have the lowest win rate, I think, after the first weekend, which is
they
a funny
do, and
meme,
I think that's
right?
a lot of people
because they've had bad
think
rules since inception, which is the beginning of AOS 3. They were in the starter box. They are the people who are joining us in AOS for the first time after spending all their time painting Marines. Cruel Boys are your like Tolkien-looking sneaky orcs that they added last edition.
we call them swamp bogglers, but yes,
and they've had bad. Everyone has said they've had bad rules for a long time, carried by things like the sheet of the god that they can bring in, similar and similar. Do you think they're powerful now? Because obviously the meme is continuing. People are like, well, Crawl Boys at the bottom.
I think they're one of the 5 best armies in the indexes.
Interesting. If you go to a tournament tomorrow,
but they have a very high skill
what would you
floor.
play?
What would I play? I'm gonna Slaanesh just because I like my Slaanesh. I think they have, even though they have the worst battle trait printed in the entire index, like it is truly the worst.
Right?
And please, GW, stop
you
being
get
obsessed
advance in charge,
with the
but it
dice
gives
thing.
the opponent 6.
Please stop being obsessed with bonusing your opponent.
I think the flavor is good. Giving your opponent temptations is a great idea in practice. The execution is obviously just a little bit off.
Here's a little revelation for the design team. Your opponent is always going to be tempted by you throughout the game. That's called clever play. When you put a chaff unit out there and dare them to charge it so that you can countercharge it, do you know what another word for that would be? It'd be tempting them. It'd be tempting them to do it.
How war games work in general. That's how war can work in general. How do you manifest that? You're a game designer. We're probably going to talk about that in a moment. Like, how would you do that with Slaanesh? That is because the example you're giving is what all the factions do.
Absolutely correct. I would do it the way they did it correctly on the Keeper of Secrets. The Keeper of Secrets, the way she works is at the beginning of combat, she grants them a small bonus. You have a choice of different bonuses you can grab them. You can grant them, and then she herself gets a bonus to damage. And generally that trade, you get to choose whether or not you do it, and generally that trade is actually quite worth it. There's usually lots of situations where it ends up working out in your favor, which, by the way, is how it should work. That's the whole point of Slaanesh, is that the temptations are worse for the people who accept the temptations, right? But in this case, what you're giving them is better than what you're getting.
Yeah,
because you're handing them the game.
So, and please correct me, I'm going to try and recite this from memory. Slaanesh allows you to give a unit the keyword ecstasy, which allows them to advance, shoot, and charge, I believe. And I think it also procs some of the abilities in the army. And ecstasy is achieved for each unit by giving the opponent a 6 that they can slot in like a miracle die or a fate die into a die roll later down the line, which basically really means that they achieve charges they shouldn't be able to achieve or shouldn't feasibly go for. And your argument, and many people's arguments, are that giving people 6s. Oh, and when they use the 6, they take D3 mortal wounds, which is just not
33% of the time.
D3 roll as
they
well,
can take D3 mortal wounds. It's a D3 roll as well, and only on one do they take the damage.
That's where I think the really big problem is that those mortal wounds are bordering on irrelevant for most units. And for some units, it's an upside.
Correct.
Some units get more. There are heroes in this game that get more attacks and more damage when injured. Clan rats
when they get
want
damage,
to advance 6, lose 3 bodies, and then res them at the end of turn on the other side of them to achieve their objective, like control thing. Like, there's so many situations where losing models to this wound thing or taking damage is actually a massive upside for you. So you're being tempted to do a thing that also has another thing attached to that's probably an upside more than it is a downside. So I think that's the problem. If it was like a serious thing, like that unit loses the ability to do actions like next turn, like it turns it off for a turn, or something crazy. Like the swings need to
sets their objective control to a max of
zero,
1 or whatever. Like there's lots of strings they could have pulled.
Things that are like, whoa, do I want to do this? Is this really a road I want to go down? Like, do I want to take the Hellraiser box and talk to the Cenobites? And the Cenobites show up and they're like, take a mortal wound, and you're like, oh, Pinhead, I thought you were a sadist, not just a massage artist. So yeah.
Is that all? Yes, that's all. Okay, well, thanks, Pinhead.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good die rolls or whatever. Yeah. So you take Slaanesh because you love how they play, even if
I do. It's one of the 2 armies closest to my heart, and Slaanesh and Skaven are my 2 like main armies, and I don't have my Skaven ready, so there you go. Easy answer.
I've just picked up I've just bought a secondhand. Where is it? That's not here. Primed and painted Shalaxi. So that's me pushing into Slaanesh. There's so many armies I've started, Vince. Like I've just bought like a load of Soulblight Gravelords on eBay as well. I've got like 60 zombies, there's 60 skeletons and 40 zombies, Vampire Knight Riders and stuff. Because there's Miniax videos where he's painting the Vampire Knight Riders I really want to paint that army and stuff. So I'm very in a hole with it. I hyper focus on things, and AOS is my new favorite thing to be in a honeymoon period with. But something we skipped over that I did want to talk about before we talk about AOS and start to compare to 40k, which is where we're naturally going to, was that you do a bit of game design, right?
I do. Yeah.
So how did you land in that? You do it with Tabletop Minions, right?
Yeah, correct. So I have been a game designer, or aspiring one at least, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I've been someone who writes games and writes content for games for a very long time. Originally that came out of role-playing games. I did like stuff for Dragon Magazine and things like that way back in the day, like back in the 2000s during the original D20 boom. And then eventually I started writing my own games. The first games I wrote are all bad. They're all bad. But
things you make in any creative field are bad, right? The first models you paint, the first videos you make, the first scripts you write, there's all bad.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to start somewhere.
But I proved to myself I could do it, right? So I could write a 260-page book or something like that. This is what I wrote, right? And so I wrote some games, and then I had gone on with that. And then the last game I made alone was this game right here, which is partially off camera for our viewers, I'm sure. But this is a game called NGS, the Narrative Game System, and it was it was sort of the 5th or 6th game I had done. Did it with a partner of mine, and I wrote it, and he helped me kind of launch it and stuff like that. We did a Kickstarter for it. It was successful, all of that. It was just a really fun experience, and it felt like sort of the culmination of my role-playing game writing. Like, I didn't really have a desire to write a role-playing game after that. Now, I will say at the same time, I also was a consultant for 5th edition D&D. So I was one of like 8 consultants they hired to work with them in early 5th edition D&D planning. And it's just what it is, I guess. And so I'm very proud.
It's a cool thing to drop into conversation, though. Like, I mean, we're having a conversation very much specifically about that, so it's not like you didn't maneuver the conversation. But by the way, guys, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I never do. It's like it was. I don't. Who cares? Like, whatever. Like
Nerds care about this stuff.
Sure. It was a fulfillment of something important to me that when what I dreamed of when I was young was opening a player's handbook and seeing my name on the inside cover, right? And that was achieved. And so it felt like, okay, between publishing my own game that was very successful and then having that happen, I was like, well, I've kind of done what I want to do with role-playing games. And that was that for a while. I just played Warhammer and didn't think much about it, and so on. And then the pandemic hit, and I was visiting Sam Lenz, and Adam came up and hung out with us, and he was like, hey, I used to make a game or two with this buddy of mine, and I've been kind of thinking about this game, and it's about demons fighting or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's cool. He's like, we're kind of stuck inside and not doing much. This is like very early in the pandemic, so. Sure. And I said, yeah, okay, like, let's talk about it. So I kind of took it away, and I did a little write-up, and I said, yeah, I'm interested in this. I think it'd be fun, and here's kind of how my pitch would be and how I think I'd do it. And he said, all right, well, let's try it. And so we wrote the game. It was like a 64 pages for our first game. It's not super huge, but it was a lot of fun. It got a very good reception.
Is that Reign in Hell?
Reign in Hell, yeah, sorry. So that was the very first game we made, yep.
That's like skirmish combat sort of thing?
Yep, skirmish combat, demonic skirmish combat. You're fighting in post-apocalyptic hell. is the idea. So like it's hell, but not like the Judeo-Christian hell. It's sort of another world full of demons, and it experienced its own apocalypse. It used to have like like leaders and people in charge in a very full
high-rise
society,
towers
and
and
apart.
office desk jobs, like real hell.
Pretty much, you got it. And then that all fell apart, and so now the demons wander the hell wasteland and fight each other for power and collecting souls and stuff. Anyways, it was fun, and I really liked it, and it was well received. And so we said, okay, well, do we want to keep doing this? And we both said yeah. And so since then, we've published more games. We did Majestic 13, which was our sci-fi game. It's very much a like story-driven, solo co-op focused game where you're sort of exploring a space station sort of ancient beyond measure. That you get sort of teleported to out of nowhere. And then we did our third game, which was Majestic 13, which was about sort of near modern, like slightly future modern, like conspiracy theory, teams of mercenaries that fight aliens type of stuff. Like one very powerful alien, and there's like 5 of you. You have to take down the one super beast, basically. So kind of like Ogre is a sort of inspiration or homage if you ever played that game.
Meets X-Files. Ogre meets X-Files.
We always said XCOM meets X-Files was sort of the pitch of the thing, right?
Sure.
And because there's like base building and all that kind of stuff in it. And then the fourth game was Death Wizards, which was the most recent one we released, which is Necromancers and Necromantic skirmish combat. You build your horde. And that was an interesting, different challenge. You fight heroes. You can raise the heroes, and they can become part of your horde. And you're on sort of a path to power from like you start raiding local villages, and then eventually you're trying to like kill the king and complete your dark apotheosis and stuff like that. So
it's got DNA of like I've ordered my book is somewhere over the Atlantic or the Pacific right now. So I've ordered it because I'm going to play a bit with some people on my Discord. But it's kind of like got some DNA of like, I guess, Mordheim and Necromunda, right? Because you're progressively creating a group. But like the interesting selling point, I guess, if I'm going to help you pitch it here to an audience, is that you've got competitive, co-op, like solo play. It's got all of those modes like in mind in theory, right? Yeah.
Yep. Solo co-op and skirmish like versus all equally balanced, and they all play together in the campaign. So you can like fight against your friend, then team up with them, then play a game alone, and the whole time you're still contributing to your necromancer's advancement.
Sick. So if you were to say someone's listening to this right now and they write D&D content, I've got several friends straight away when you mentioned your beginning was making tabletop RPG content for your tabletop groups, right? Multiple friends who I'm encouraging them to try and put their modules out there because I think they're good.
Yeah.
What would your put on the spot? What would you advise to someone who's in that situation be in terms of they are writing material and that even would like to make their own games at some point? And by games we mean, for people who are listening on a bit confused, we're talking about like tabletop rule sets with like fluff and flavor and stuff added on. What would your like tip for getting out and doing that or making some traction in that area, or what made you make the jump to getting something out there? Like Rain and Hell was because you sort of collaborated, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Well, so I'll say 2 pieces of advice. One, if you can find a partner to work with who you trust and you can work with, that's actually extremely beneficial. When you have to do these things completely on your own, it's really challenging because you probably don't have all of the skill sets necessary to do everything, like to market, to layout. Like, are you both good with InDesign and writing rules and making art and right? So like, if you can find a partner who can cover your skill sets, and that's very much how Adam and I work. Like he's a graphic designer by trade and stuff like that. So like he covers a huge things that I don't. And so we just have this natural synergy. If you can find a situation like that, hey, that's great. Plus the 2 of you can help keep each other on track. When you have somebody who you have to like Adam and I meet weekly and do status updates for each other of what we've worked on. When you know you're doing a status update to your friend and business partner, you don't procrastinate. You get crap done, right? Yeah. So that's number 1. Like it's if you have to go fast, go alone. If you have to go far, go together, right? So like go together if you can, because writing a game is definitely going far.
In some ways, that's pretty good advice for like a lot of creative pursuits. Like it doesn't suit every creative pursuit. Like if you're going to be an oil painter, I don't know if a partner is helpful in that regard. But like having accountability and check-ins and stuff like that is probably I was just saying that, I was thinking, mate, fuck, do I need that about my YouTube videos? Because like sometimes you're just out there like on content creation's a lonely island often. But anyway, sorry, you're yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, that's why I'm sure you are just like I am. Like we talk, like content creators talk amongst themselves and you're like, hey, this is the thing. I'm thinking about this video, blah, 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 blah. It's all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you still bounce off. Same with miniature painting. Like if you can have a coach or somebody who can give you feedback, you'll advance a lot quicker than if you're just doing it alone in your room.
Yeah, that's something I've learned actually from like yourself, from like Ninjon and Miniac and stuff, is that actually asking for feedback and talking about things you've done, especially with people who are more experienced or have been doing it for longer, is actually good. Because like I'm the kind of person, it might be a British sensibility, who shies away from feedback and discussion around what they do.
Sure.
Because you just like stiff up a lip and like, oh, you know, just like, I'll pull myself up, I'll get there eventually. And that's not always the most helpful or best way to do things. So yeah, I think like painting discords and groups like that to help you, from a painting perspective at least, are really good. A lot
100%.
of people. So if you're one of the people checking out my content and you're like, Vince, what should I do to start painting? I think getting in with a group of people who also like painting or want to start painting is good, because you can, support each other in that way.
Absolutely. The second piece of advice I give is very, very simple. Okay, and that piece of advice is winners ship. That's it. That's all. Winners ship. Okay? How successful is your YouTube channel if you don't make videos? Not.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Is every video you make an absolute banger? Do they all go to the top of the charts, to the moon, baby? No, of course not, right?
It's exactly what I said before. The first things you make are shit. But
yes.
If you don't make anything, you're never going to get through the shit to the better part. So it's a similar. I give that advice all the time to people who want to get into content. I'm like, you just got to start making stuff.
You have to make it. It's the same thing with games. Like, write games, put stuff out there. Self-publishing is easier than it's ever been. Get feedback, learn, then do it again. Stick your finger in the light socket enough times to determine if this is for you or not. Right? Do you like getting shocked? Because that's all it's going to be.
Yeah, what doesn't kill you kind of makes you stronger, I guess, in a sense. But,
if you're willing to go through the crucible, yes, right. Like you have to, like it will. You have to allow the sort of. It has to be the sort of death of ego, right? Because not everybody's going to like what you do, and that's that's okay.
That's so relatable to content, right? Because you've got to put stuff out there. You got to get over the fact that you probably don't like the sound of your own voice, and no one else does either. But you got to get over that.
Right.
Like, there's so many. Yeah, it's. I hadn't actually thought of this when we went into this. This wasn't my line. Was like, I'm going to ask Vince this question, and then go on about content. But it's so fucking true. Every time you said something, I'm like, that's just like making videos. That's just like writing articles. That's just like any sort of content.
100%. It's very much the same experience. I mean, obviously, it's a longer time horizon, right? We can make a video faster than I can write a book, but the principles are the same. Yeah.
That's the rise of video media, right? No one writes articles anymore. Or like, if you want to do a guide, you do a video guide, because
right.
Yeah.
People aren't putting together the ASCII character guides as much anymore, that kind of thing, when you need your video game guide.
They're the ones with the text renditions of like the opening screen, or like a giant text. I'll say penis. That doesn't start the guys, but you know what I mean. Some sort of like a sword, the Master Sword, drawn out in your Ocarina of Time guide with asterisks and dashes. So, on that note, let's talk about a game that I guess it gets designed, it gets made. Warhammer 40,000. It's more than a game now. It's a global phenomenon. They make a lot of money. For some people, it is a lifestyle, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, my wife probably would laugh and think that's what... It's me analyzing there, because I'm pretty into it. So, 40k isn't for you. Is that the case? Or is it that Marines are shit and they take up the vast majority of it? Is that what it is?
No. It's not just that. I'll say that. So I have played 40k. I do own a 40k army.
What did you own?
I own actually two. Actually, now that I think about it, I own a Marine army. I own an Alpha Legion army, and I have a Knights army. I like my Knights. I like big, giant, stompy things.
Sure. You must own enough demons of some description to play.
Oh, sure. Like I could absolutely play like the demon armies and stuff like that. Yeah. But they were painted for AOS, so I'm not going to count them. You know what I mean? Like, yes, sure. Technically, you're absolutely right. I own a ton of Khorne demons and Slaanesh demons and all that kind of stuff. I could easily put together a Chaos
And arguably, in my opinion, I think the demons have some of the more fun rules right now, as an example as well, in terms of actually enjoying the game. Sure. Yes. So you do own some stuff.
I do. I had an Imperial Guard army for a long time. Yes, I know that's not what they're called now, but they were called that when I owned the army.
That's what everyone calls them.
Yeah.
The in-canon thing is the Cadia fell before the Guard did, so they still call them the Guard.
Yeah, sure.
They just can't copyright it.
My Guard army was gosh, I can't even remember the name of it now. It's the Valhallans or whatever, the Winter people. So I had a big, huge...
Valhallan Stormborns, something like that.
Yeah. it was all the people in winter coats. They look like Russian sort of kind of soldiers, right?
yeah.
They had the little fur hats and long coats and stuff.
That's
like
from a
that.
time when GW everything was just a rip on an ethnicity or a part of the world that we live in now. And over the years, they've like, we probably need to stop doing this because we are not culturally sensitive enough, and they've just slowly veered away from it. But yes, those times, the good old days.
Right. So that was sort of my army, and I had a big version of that army. I ended up trading it away at some point for something. I don't remember what I sold.
Again,
it for,
all metal, like your Skaven?
All metal. Yeah, it was all metal. Yeah. Well, I guess that's not totally true. The tanks were plastic, obviously, right? Because that time all the like, and I loved tanks. Again, I like big stompy. I like big shooty things. So I had tons and tons of chimeras and Layman Russ and of all varieties and basilisk and everything like that, right? Like I used to love, like, a 120-inch maximum range. I'm like, yeah, 10-foot range. I'm gonna shoot the table next to me. Like it was great. So. And, I had a ton of guard and all that. It was a pretty big army, honestly. All the weapons teams and sentinels and rough riders and everything, just like everything, right? But yeah, so like we played 40K quite a bit. And then eventually we just sort of like fell off 40K, but we kept kind of going with fantasy. So that was sort of a thing that my group, my club, my friends, whatever you want to say, did. Ultimately, from a personal perspective, right, wasn't just that made me bored with 40K. So I started in 3rd edition, by the way, just to ground that back in the 90s.
Sure.
Like, okay, I don't want to make your audience angry, since I guess your audience is, like, there's probably many people who are more 40K things, but like...
Probably, yeah.
So let me just openly put this disclaimer out there that I ask you to take all of everything I'm about to say with grace and with the understanding that this is my and my alone's personal opinion, and is in no way a judgment on any human that writes the game, on any sculptors that have created the game, or any of the people involved in the long and illustrious history of what is a seminal and very important game within the wargaming industry that frankly has helped grow the industry in ways that it would be much smaller, much more atrophied, and much less fun if 40K didn't exist. So it is, regardless of anything I'm about to say, it is an incredibly important game as a sort of cultural touchstone and as a thing within this industry. Now, please.
I'm scared how, because you were preloading this hard. You were like,
yeah, sure. And let me say this: I could not find a universe more boring, less compelling, less full of any rough edge to grab onto in any way. It is truly sci-fi in the most rote form possible. It explores nothing. It says nothing. It has nothing to claim or do. It is the universe itself is static. It might as well be locked in amber. It will never change because it is a small C conservative. I don't mean anything to do with politics. I mean being conservative with the lore,
like design philosophy or writing philosophy.
Correct.
More so than
And so hence it will always be locked in amber. We will all be old and dead and in the ground and dust, and they'll be releasing the next generation of Eldar that look slightly different than this generation of Eldar. And if you trace it back like 5 generations to the original designs, they'll still basically look the same, and people wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you put them all in a unit. The universe itself is boring. It had I find that
fascinating that you think it's so boring.
Yeah, yes, because what's interesting about it? It's a big, giant, fashy empire. Cool, neat, with a bunch of aliens on the outside. No one works together. No one has a different plan. This is it. It is
okay. Well, people weirdly, as much as they want to make it out that everyone's super xenophobic and hate each other, they always work together. Like this, but the end of Gathering Storm, the last really big plot point that actually pushed anything forward was just all the good guys were teaming up to fight back against chaos in a way that feels almost like Saturday cartoon sort of thing of we're all friends now for a while.
Good. I'd love to see an actual change in the universe. Show me the actual change in the universe.
Right. So I don't know if you know or not, Abaddon crashed a fortress in Decadia and blew it up and ripped open the entire galaxy.
I am familiar.
So it's not
neat.
So I
That's
agree
a neat
with
thing that happened.
yeah, so I agree with the parts that you say about like it is interesting because by the time we are dust, scattered across this earth, you are right. 40k would have moved a smidgen, and they will be releasing the same things. They will prioritize other things because it's that element that we kind of touched on at the beginning. Because like they really fucking want this thing to keep making money, so you don't want to scratch the paint on Danny's car. You don't want to break some eggs if it's not fixed. To fix it if it's not broken, and so on and so on. However, if anything, they've made changes in recent canon, things like the fall of Cadia, the modern 40k. I know a bit more about Horus Heresy than I do about modern 40k, but the Sictum Deledictum, whatever it is, Imperio Nihilis. Someone can comment down below the name of it. The universe gets torn in two, and now the Empire can't talk to each other unless they go around this big fucking thing. There's been advancements and changes. In the
makes complete sense in space.
Yes. Years. Yeah. Well, space doesn't make any sense in 40k anyway, right? You have to travel through literal hell to get anywhere.
That's fine. It's a neat concept. I love all the base stuff of 40k, like the original concepts, the satirical. What's so funny about this? The sort of satirical concepts and like the early art and Rogue Trader era and that kind of stuff, and like a lot of the ideas when it wasn't as sort of set in amber yet, when they were still being very exploratory and imaginative with it, I actually really like. I think it's very of its time. It very much grows out of the sensibilities of a lot of mid 80s sort of Middle England. Punks, right? Like that's it has a time and place. Young
nerds. I mean, I'm not going to call either of us young nerds anymore, but young nerds like us who are upset with the current establishment, but also have a raging hard on for like Dune and Lord of the Rings. They're like, what if the two shall meet? That sort of thing.
It wears its influences on its sleeve, and by the way, I don't think in any way that's a negative. So what I mean by that is like, is it obviously drawing tons of inspiration from Dune and from other sci-fi? Yes, of course. But that's okay. So what? Like lots of things draw inspiration from other things. Like that. Yeah. That is in no way a negative. Anytime somebody launches a thing like that, I'm just like, what a basic complaint.
Imagine if people in like 1930s and 40s were upset with Tolkien because he was pulling from like the actual like folklore of like European races and stuff. Like it would be crazy for people to make those comments, but
exactly. Everything exists within like the context of where it's happening, right? And that's
Warhammer is like a melting pot of like I guess nerd references in a way. Like it's not all nerd stuff because they've got like a lot of like European Roman Catholicism and like the Germanic Gothic and stuff like that, all piled on top for like visual reference, I guess. But like it's such a melting pot for those things that it's become deeply influential in other mediums, right? People also this feels a bit Warhammer because Warhammer didn't do it first, but they melting potted in a way that other franchises kind of didn't.
That had a real social cachet, 100%.
Yeah. I think, do you not find any of that compelling at all? Do you not find like humanity pushed to the most extreme silliness of like sacrificing? Well, that's the thing. A lot of it is sanitized now. That's not the problem I have, but because I feel like there's a part of what you're saying I agree with. Like look at the John Blanche art for the Imperial Throne compared to what we get now, right? When we inevitably get a fucking Emperor model at some point when they finish doing all the Primarchs, there's like an Emperor model in the game, it's gonna suck and I'm gonna think it looks like dumb and it's not what I want, right? Like I like the idea that all of these Emperors and Primarchs and all this shit are like ethereal beings that will never quite understand what they did, or they should be things of legend that then we only get like trickle downs of in this dark future where no one's history is quite right. But instead it's turned more into like superhero wrestling fiction with gimmick characters instead. So
it is very much wrestling fiction. That is an extremely apropos metaphor, right?
And that again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily what like the thing that appealed to people in like the 90s and the noughties and stuff. Like it changes over time. So arguably, even if canonically it's not changing, even if like you said the core story is an amber. Surely them being like, let's bring every Primarch back and put them on a t-shirt and sell them in our little gift shop sort of thing. The Disneyification, the mascotification of Warhammer 40k. That is a change, better or worse.
It is a change, and I wish they would do something. I wish they had done something more. Like it would have been interesting to bring, Robute back and then have him make like extremely material changes that manifest in some way in the Imperium. Like, the Imperium's different now in some extremely material way.
I hate his comeback because he is very much like he's played a little bit, at least in the like 2 or 3 novels that I've read that he's in. He's played as like almost like the the audience insert like, this is a bit too much. So like he's watching the Imperium be like the shit state that it is. And he's like, this is not what it was meant to be. You're like, dude, you were committing war crimes for like a genocidal space wizard like 10,000 years ago. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
sure. I mean, well, yeah, you're on ice long enough. I suppose you wake up with a little more perspective, right? But
he's Captain America, but he stopped. He went from being a Nazi into he went the other way. In
right,
a sense,
swung around the other direction. Yeah. You know, like, again, and they can't, like, part of this, by the way, is just miniatures games in general. So what I mean by that is, like, when you're a flagship brand like GW, okay, like, let me just, here you go. Ready? Okay. What was the big story of 10th edition? What was, like, the big thing? What's sort
to
of
be fair, if anything, they're more like what you're saying over the last 4 years that I've got into it than they were prior to that, it seems. It seems like there's a grinding halt. As I entered, they're like, we blew up this planet, the universe is split in two, Alberon had his first victory ever in the history of the game. And then I've been in here, I'm like, what's happened? Well, these Marines got a bit older and they started putting skeletons on their shields in 9th. Okay. Then what happened? They stopped doing that by 10th. And you're like, what? What's going on? And you don't read the title novels or anything because they're all fucking bollocks. They're terrible. Like, I read the accompanying novel for the Indomitus release, and all it was like name dropping of units you can buy in the web store. So at one point, like the Eradicators appear and melt a door down with their melters. Their big moment is they unlock a door with their melter guns. I'm like, what am I reading? What is this? So,
yeah, exactly. No, it's and by the way, like, I'm not, when we talk about AOS later, I'm not exempting this from some of the same critiques. I have a regular segment. That is my follow-up
question. It's coming. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
is
don't worry.
AOS
We're gonna get there. I have a regular segment on my show called Story Time when we were doing the, like, Broken Realms novels, and I'm like, now let's continue with the story of the stupidest people who've ever been the protagonists in novels doing the stupidest things you could possibly do at all points in time. Okay. So the big story was, like, Tyranids invaded, and they invaded from the other side of the galaxy. Whoa! Okay, crazy, right?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, great. So it's like High Fleet Leviathan comes in from the other side.
Oh, and there's some big there's Space Hulks that are bigger than Space Hulks that the Chaos can control called arcs.
Sure. Yeah.
There's that too.
Yep.
Again, it's rather unimpactful and not very. Oh, we got we got a Chaos God Ascendant come in. We've got
Balgor, whatever his name is, that dude.
Yeah, Vashtor.
Vashtor.
Who I wanted it to be. So here's my fucking hold up side tangent. Okay, I wanted Vashtor to be like, he thinks he's becoming a Chaos God and he looks a bit like a horned rat. So what I wanted it to be was that somewhere in the universe there were like rat people on a planet who were worshipping Vashtor as the horned rat, and he's like, guys, I'm not the fucking horned rat. And they're like, well, you look like a horned rat, bro. And then he gets ascended to be the horned rat in the future canon, because obviously there's 5 Chaos Gods in AOS now and there's only 4 in like 40k. I want Vashtor to be the reluctant horned rat who doesn't even like his rat people, and then we get Space Skaven. Or time-shifted Space Skaven. Either way.
I mean, that sounds fun as.
You know, yeah. That's what I wanted.
And sounds way more bold. That's still pretty within the lines and way more bold than they would ever do. Okay.
Look, they wouldn't even send me preview stuff, so I don't think they're ever going to listen to me for story direction. But anyway, that's what I want. I want Space Skaven. But then, to be honest, then they'd probably, and I don't mean this harsh because I don't think they fuck everything up. It sounds like I do. But then they'd probably fuck up the model release, and the Space Skaven will look very pedestrian, very small marine, heavy arm. Like, no, I want my Space Skaven scatty. Like they look like freedom fighters with bandanas around their heads and little beanie hats as they're coming out of the sewers. They're basically GSC, if we're honest. But anyway.
No, you're good. Okay, so the Tyranids invade. Okay. Neat, cool story. What's the end of that? Do the Tyranids win? Could they win? Is there ever a world where they win?
Well, no, because they need the toys to keep selling.
The toys have to sell. It's a miniatures game. You have to keep all the armies in the game. The Eldar are going to get wiped out. The Dark Eldar aren't going to get wiped out. Nobody's going to die. It's all going to be fine. We'll blow up a planet here or there, and that's all fine. Like, whatever. The broad macro trends of the story will always remain the same. It'll always be locked in amber. It'll always be what it is. Because it has to be, because it's tied to models from which they make money. Period. Right?
And
that's it.
That exists for a lot of stuff, right? That exists, so I don't know if you're, because obviously we're both fellow nerds. Are you into comic books? Have you ever been into comic books?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was a massive DC fanboy at one point. I love Marvel and DC. I love all of it. I love the main superhero canons and stuff. But again, they get predictable and a little bit stale, a little bit frustrating, because the status quo always has to return at some point, so they can occasionally write a gem here and there. But
we could do a whole different. We could do a whole hour and a half on comics. Yes, I'm a huge comics fan. Have been my entire life. And like we could do a whole thing on that. But yes, it is the comic bookification, the wrestling storyification, right? And by the way, like none of those are even the stories that really matter. That's what's really funny about all this. Like you can have these broad macro trends and universe altering things and stuff like that. Like when you watch a movie, when you watch Alien, the movie Alien, right? Yeah, okay. The first time you watched Alien, you probably did not expect that alien to rip out of that dude's chest and kill him. Okay,
Yeah.
like
Well,
it was
it's
a
one of the most
shocking
famous
moment.
scenes in pop culture history, so you might have seen it by osmosis. But yes, it is pretty shocking. I agree.
Sure,
Absolutely.
if you like the first time I watched it, it was
If
not.
somehow you've lived your life not knowing what Alien is, and then you
Right.
suddenly see Alien, fuck that scene. That's one of those things that I often say is like there's certain films, certain games, certain things that I just wish I could experience without. It's almost like I wish I could selectively
Without
remove
any
my memories.
foreknowledge. Yeah.
Because my goodness, like to go back and like I don't know, see Alien again or see Blade Runner for the first time, and or even see it without the because Blade Runner and the Matrix and things like that. This is again on a bit of a tangent, and Warhammer to an extent because some people say, "Oh, this is so typical Space Marines and aliens." Like, yeah, they kind of did sort of like put this in motion for everyone else. So when someone says Blade Runner, I've seen that movie a million times. Like, yeah, but you're not understanding that when this came out, it was a little bit more impressive and yeah. Anyway, your point was the shock of alien chestbursters.
Yeah, and it was like an incredible scene, and basically the whole crew dies, and you're not sure that what's going to happen, right? The idea of Ripley being the last survivor is not spoilers for a literal 50-year-old movie. That or 45, whatever. You're not sure that's going to be the case.
79? Yeah, I reckon
79, yeah.
Yeah.
So like you don't know that that's going to be the case. Like people drop like fast in that movie. People drop in Aliens, the second one, right? And like maybe you're expecting it more given the status of the first one or whatever, right? But at any rate, like stories and stuff like that can always just do bigger moves. And what's actually interesting is the individual human level stories, right?
Yes.
So and some of the novels, especially within the Heresy era, do actually do this pretty well. Where they portray like the individual people's stories, the individual sort of stories of people making choices, emotional choices, and resonating. And I think that's why, in the end, that's the stuff that actually stands out, because in the past, when they're dealing with the past, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay, i.e. the Heresy era.
Yeah,
Like,
very, very
they can-
fluid past that they can change at all times. Yes.
Correct. They can basically rewrite it a lot, and at the same time, they have the freedom to like tell smaller scale stories set amidst a larger conflict that has characters that live, die, make choices, suffer emotional consequences, right? I mean, you okay. You mentioned comics. I'm going to tell this story real quick.
Sure.
Okay, you know who Grant Morrison is?
Yeah, love Grant Morrison.
Of course, one of the best comics authors of all time, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the
You
best
ever
X-Men
read all-
run, one of the best Batman runs. Yeah, incredible stuff.
Absolutely. You ever read All-Star Superman?
Yes, All Star Superman's probably one of the best Superman runs. So Grant Morrison's got a good history of comic books.
He has an incredible track record. What happens at the beginning of All-Star Superman? What's like one of the first thing that happens?
Fucking, I haven't read it for like.
It's okay.
15 years?
I'll just say.
Yeah, go on.
Superman gets hit by a flare, saving a spaceship near the sun, and becomes more powerful than he's ever been in his life. Okay? As powerful as Superman is, which is like really, really powerful, and the thing where people are like, you can't tell because Superman is too strong. That's the dumbest crap I've ever heard.
Yes.
Okay? It's just stupid.
Yes. We may be more kindred than I thought because I'm a big. I've been angry on Twitter about Superman recently and people the way they treat him. Fuck.
It's
Yes.
the dumbest thing ever. At any rate,
Yeah.
Grant Morrison starts the story by making Superman 4, 5, 10 times stronger than he's ever been in the comics, right? He's Golden Age Superman, just ramped all the way up, okay? Like, there's a scene where he's lifting weight with one hand, and Dr. Q is like, well, that's 500 quintillion tons you're lifting. I can't make the machine go any higher. And Superman's like, I feel like I could do a lot more. That's how strong we're dealing with here, okay? Like, this is a guy who could just push the moon around. Okay? Which weighs something like 6, the next step above quintillion, septillion tons or whatever, right? Okay. Whatever.
Sure.
Sextillion tons.
I mean, how the physics of that would work, I don't know, but there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. At any rate, and somebody asked Grant Morrison, well, how are you going to tell a good story with Superman being this powerful? And he said, I apologize. I want to do Grant Morrison's like pseudo Scottish accent here, but I don't want to insult an entire culture of people.
Yeah.
At any rate, he's like, simple. I'll tell the story that matters, emotional stories. That's what actually matters. The rest of this is just window dressing. And he's exactly right. Like, his relationship with Lois, his relationship with Lex, with his parents, with the city he loves, right? With other Kryptonians, with a stupid star monster that he keeps as a pet that like eats suns, but is to Superman completely not threatening because he's Superman. So like this horrible cosmic entity that is like a world ender is just like a poor lost child to him, right? Because he's a god. And like that story is emotionally crushing. It's if you've read it or if you want to watch it, they did make an animated series out of it that's rather truncated but still good. Sure. And like that's what actually matters. So I don't care how powerful the Emperor is or how powerful Space Marines are. The Heresy Guard gets to tell these good stories. Modern 40K really doesn't. It doesn't get to make the big moves. It doesn't get to make the small moves as much. And so this is a challenge.
You're completely right in the Superman thing. Like, I haven't read it all stuff for so long, but it's one of those ones that I recommend because it's often the one I remember. Or there are multiple Superman stories like this where it is not about power levels and all that sort of stuff, because it is about the human side of it. Same with a lot of comic book characters, even like the Batman, the Flash, and stuff. Like the human drama, the interpersonal drama is the important part, right? There's a quote recently from one of the writers of Game of one of the stars of the new House of Dragons show, talking about how Game of Thrones and House of Dragons is at its best when it's like an interpersonal drama. Like the wars and the battles and the dragons don't matter. And it's true. The best scenes in that often are that. So yeah, All-Star Superman, absolutely go read it. Even though I can't even remember beyond like the altercations with Hercules and the Star-Eating Monster and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
no, it's fun.
Yeah. But there are other stories that are impressive to, I guess, like boys like me, I guess, which is like, well, there's a few things. So there's the Superman example of the human stuff. There's also like the science fiction conjecture and like what you can do with the ideas. Like, although a lot of them do come back to being human and personal again. I'm trying to think of
look, you're never going to get out of Warhammer 40K. Like, you're never going to get an Ursula Le Guin novel. Okay, like let's be fair.
Sure.
Right, and it's like,
the point is, you get this stuff in Heresy, sure, but you can get this in 40K. Although, to be fair, I do often veer away from the 40K novel side of things because a lot of them are a little. I don't know. I don't want to just make this blanket statement that all Heresy novels are just written better than 40K novels.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I'm not at all. What I'm saying is they have a little more freedom to do this kind of thing in the Heresy novels. I'm not making any blanket statement about quality, okay?
Well, there is an argument that it's a sandbox for that kind of writing, though, right? Because whilst the general meta scale of the conflict, shall we say, never change, that you can still write stories about a random man on a random planet. The backstory for Dante, his novel, is like he's just like a slave boy or whatever, and like they can still tell the personal stories that they just make up this one planet.
But in the end, you still know it's Dante. You're reading it knowing it's Dante.
But like Gaunt's Ghosts or Eisenhorn or whatever.
Sure. That's why everybody likes the Eisenhorn novels and the Gaunt's Ghost novels and stuff like that, because it's not about the size of the stakes or anything like that. It's just about the fact that you have characters that have that kind of depth. But again, broadly construed, I don't want to beat on this rabbit hole forever. Broadly construed, I don't find the large universe as a whole interesting.
Right. Okay.
And then,
so
Sigmar zooming in.
Realms, then.
Yeah, zooming in just real quick. I also don't like the aesthetics. Like to move this away from the story. And by the way, if people are like angry and slamming on their keyboard right now about you need to read this particular novel or something, cool. Leave a comment, increase the engagement. And to
be fair, I'll probably read those to get some recommendations anyway, because I've been
if there are good modern 40K novels that focus on this kind of stuff, I am interested, and that's fine. I'd love to hear them. I'm not going to read all of them to find the gem in the gem in the rough. I'm just not.
Yeah, and I just haven't found a contemporary novel. I've read a few things like Araman and Black Clans of Horse and stuff, but none of it really compares to like Thousand Suns and like First Heretic and a lot of the Heresy era stuff. Again, there's probably a bit more to that about like. Anyway.
Yeah. So the only aesthetics I like within 40K are the knights. I love the knights. I love their aesthetic. I think they're awesome. I love how they can be good guys or bad guys, and I think they're amazing. And I love painting them. And I just think they look so cool.
That's interesting because again, it's all subjectivity, right? But I find knights to be a little bit more boring looking because they just I don't know.
Oh, they look so dumb. They're everything.
Dumb, not in a.
Yeah, to me, they're everything 40K. It's a giant robot the size of a small building that you have decided to put a claw and a chainsaw on That is
Yeah.
wild. That is only 40K. That it is 40K's tagline should be dumb but pretty cool. All right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that is dumb
And
but
then-
pretty cool.
But the knights aren't dumb enough. This is the problem I have with knights, right?
Got it.
I bought the Christmas box. I will build and paint some because they're great canvases for getting some beautiful gradients and shit on with an airbrush, right? But like as a kid, knights and titans. Well, back in the day, it was Titans. Knights were less of a conversation. They were small models in the epic scale games, right? They were thought of. But they were two things. One, in the incredible artworks that accompanied Epic and some of the John Blanche shit and that, but the giant things with fucking cathedrals on top of them, right? There's that.
Yeah.
Do you remember well,
of
not
course.
remember,
Yeah,
that still
yeah.
exists. And then also there was a comic book series in Warhammer Monthly called Blood Quest, which is about some blood angels stuck on a chaos world. There's a whole thing where they have to like climb up the inner leg of a knight or a titan to like fight it and stuff. And it's very young me was like, this is fucking the coolest shit I've ever read in my life.
Sure.
But then we get to Knights coming out, and I was watching from the outside looking in because I was always that kid on the window, like, can I start playing Warhammer yet? Am I allowed? And it took for my wife being like, why the fuck don't you just buy some for me to do it? But where's the cathedral shit? Where's the really audacious nonsense that I expected to be on these things? Like, I really want to sand down the flat top of my knight and put the battle sanctum from the Sisters of Battle on top of it to just make it into what I remember these things being. They just feel almost pedestrian by 40K standards. Because I guess 40K's art sensibilities the model sensibilities never live up to the art. It's probably one of the problems that we get, right? Like you said, nothing is ever quite that John Blanche thing. Yes. I mean, Sisters come... some of it comes close. The what's her name, Sister Varorian or whatever. The second edition codex cover. The model they did for her is pretty good. That art there that you're pointing out, which is it's so dope. I love Sisters. They did like one model where she's still on the step with like a flaming candle on the step, and it's close. And I guess the Immolator and the Exorcist, the one with the organ on top, which has always been a thing since Sisters were like around in second edition. But that's kind of where I wish they'd go with knights and stuff.
Yeah.
Less just big shoulder pads and a head, and more like fucking church organs and like just wild shit,
Absolutely. So you had started this road, so let's go down it real quick because I do want to be mindful of our time.
Sure.
All
I'm enjoying it too much. I've lost track of time. Fuck.
No, I know. Honestly, I'm pretty sure you and I could just like go on like this for better part of like 6 or 7 hours. So that's okay.
We'll just have to do another one.
100%. I'm willing to come back. Okay. So on the subject of AOS, like one of the things I love about it is, first of all, it was AOS suffers from all the same problems I just said. Like if people are like, but AOS is the same way, they sell models, they can't kill the whole thing. I'm like, no, you're exactly right. All those same meta criticisms will still be the case, and that's not like a thing against 40K specifically. It's a thing against wargaming. They always have to be somewhat static. Though the AOS is a much better AOS itself, the Mortal Realms, I should say, sorry, is a much better tapestry to do this kind of stuff with. You can just like find a new army, right? It could just happen. Now that's much harder to do in 40K. They still do it. We got back our
I'd say
squads.
it's about the same, right? Because like the jump from fantasy to AOS, they did this on purpose. They went from like hard-coded historical hero books with
sure, this is Europe, but not,
yeah, and then they went, actually, after the end times, everyone's cascading through space and time, and now we've accidentally fell into the heavens of different places, and there's different realms.
Yeah, the actual world itself is fantastic. It's truly fantastical, right? Like, it's a completely wild universe. And like,
it sounds in some ways similar to 40K, where there's just like, well, there could be this planet with these people on it. We just haven't found it yet. Like, both of them are purposefully static to allow you to like, love your thing that you like, but also so wide and open to allow you to tell your own stories as a consumer or a hobbyist, but also to find new shit. Although arguably 40K never does it. They have the room to do it, but they just never introduce new stuff.
And that's my point. That's that small C conservatism, right? Like it's very hard to introduce a whole new thing. It's also tough when you get to like a very large number of armies to just keep pumping out new stuff for like a support perspective.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's too many factions as it is, and I'm the one asking for more, right? Space Skaven and random aliens and stuff. But I think that's less... My argument would be it's less of a setting issue and more of a product or like IP issue. Like going back again, it really ties back to what we were saying earlier, right? They just want to be small C conservative with it. When I'm like, just go fucking wild. Where are the fish riding aliens? Like, why do they not exist? Right. You know?
Yeah. And so, but the models in AOS we talked about earlier, about the sort of wildness of it and all that. I love that. It speaks to my aesthetic. Like all my armies are so different and so weird, and I can be, like it's very, very, very like Sons of Badmouth are extremely different from Ironjaws, even though they're both in destruction. Is extremely different from what Khorne looks like, or fish elves, wet elves, whatever you want to call them. Right, the Sylvaneth are truly crazy. You've got these, half person, half sort of elf person, half trees riding giant dragonfly bugs. Like, man, that is we are doing something here, and. And so, like, just for my personal sensibilities, again, remember, this is all my personal sensibilities. It just speaks to me more at a deeper level. And it's funny, too, because, people accuse the AOS lore of being very shallow and a lot of things that I leveled against it earlier. And I think that that's true to a point. Like, I'm not going to sit here and stand on some soapbox defending it. But, like, conceptually, I like the universe a lot better where you have, like, this sort of actual hope in the darkness. Like, there are good guys and they can be muddy and stuff like that. Like, of course, not everything is pure, but honestly, keep a lot of the grimdark out of my AOS, please. Like, I like well-defined good guys and bad guys that can sometimes act good.
Okay. That's very much a personal thing, but I get it. I have friends who bounce off 40k completely because it's just so grimdark, right? They want their hopeful Star Trek as opposed to the...
Yeah, and I'm very much a Star Trek person, right? And so, like, at a sort of personal sensibility level, 40k was never meant to align with me because, like, that ultra darkness where, like, everything sucks, everybody's evil, there's no good people. It's like, okay, well, then just die. Like, just die off and everything die. It's not interesting. Like, I need somebody that I can attach to, that I can hope for. And by the way, that can be an army that's, like, sometimes bad. Like, as I mentioned, I love Skaven, right? Like, that's a bad army. They're chaos agents. They're destructive. But they accidentally often do things that are very helpful to the broader AOS universe unintentionally. They're just trying to get around and cause chaos, but they end up helpful. And, like, I like them because, to me, they feel very, like, of themselves in a way that, like, they're internally coherent and consistent. I understand their worldview and what their point of view is, right? Like, I look at like the Imperium in 40k and I'm like, you guys have to know this is dumb, right? Like, you have to know you're just doing things the wrong way. Like, obviously.
So there's an interest there because, like, I always think about this with our world of, like, if we ever imagine if we achieved the Star Trek style utopia, right? And people look back like they were just, like, murdering animals instead of synthetically making that meat product. Surely they must have known that was not ethical. And we're just like, but we're living in it right now and it happens, right? The pollution of the oceans, the way capitalism is now. It's almost like once you're in the system and the people in power, they want to. Well, I don't need to speak. I'm sure I don't need to speak this to you exactly. So, but it's interesting because I don't think there's problems with Warhammer as a satire. We're coming to the end of the podcast, by the way, people at home. We're not going to go, because there's a lot we can go on to here. There'll be an episode 2 on this. But, like, there's a problem with 40k satire in the sense that once you start to give someone the perspective of doing the right thing, it excuses a lot of weird shit in there. Like,
100%.
There's always a problem of, like, internal logic. It makes sense for them to blow up a world where people have started to worship chaos if it's opening rifts into the literal hell and demons are pouring through, right? Sure. In those extreme circumstances, you are justified in genocide. At that point, as a bleeding heart lefty, I'm like, yeah, that isn't the best message. But then on the flip side of it, you've got, like, you asking for hope. And I think, so here's the wider point that I think I'm coming to with this, is that I defend 40k for what it can or should or was in a way. And I do think you are completely right that they have trapped it in amber because it makes it for a better IP they can sell to people. Similar to what you get with modern comic books and modern comic book cinema in a way, right? And whilst they're doing that, they want to shine up those edges and make them a little bit softer, not rough, so that family-friendly viewing can happen. Heroes, heroic characters. Gulliman's back, and he might have once said he was just following orders, but now he's all right now because he wants to stop the Imperium being such naughty boys. And in a way, in introducing that small glimmer of hope, is ironically not okay for 40k because one drip of hope still makes the poison go down worse in a way because it makes all the satire not work.
Right.
So ultimately, I think you're right. It is polished off. It is, the rough edges are sanded off to the point that it's hard to even get a grip on things that are interesting. And 40k shouldn't be that way, and it won't always be that way. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they get a bit more experimental with it when they realize that it works for AOS and such. But so I agree with you with that. I think there's hope and there's hope for potential there in a way, right? There's potential, but the potential is often
that I agree
unrealized
with.
The
ground is soil. The ground is fertile. The soil is fertile. It's just laid fallow for a while or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because they're just just keep on buying, and you're like, yes. In a way, this sounds like we've structured this podcast really well, but we haven't. But to go back to just keep making Marines with jump packs, and everyone's like, yeah, Marines with jump packs.
This is the greatest day ever. Right.
And the AOS players there, like holding their like dragon shark monsters, and like, guys, are you sure? Are you sure that's all you want for in life?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like for me, the and perhaps it's because, again, just to reiterate, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. If you deeply love 40K, I'm very happy for you. I'm excited it works for you. I'm not trying to say you're a bad person or you have bad taste or anything like that in any way, shape, or form, so please do not construe it to be that. I want people to have and enjoy whatever they want. I like lots of dumb but fun things that I enjoy, or things that are just bad. I really love
half
the
of
Winx
DC
Club.
Comics ever. Half of all of DC Comics. A lot of it's real bad.
Exactly.
But I love it either way.
Yeah, there's a terrible cartoon show for little kids, probably little girls, realistically, called The Winx Club. I watch it all the time. I thought it was hilarious. Then I watched it when they remade it on Netflix and called it Fate: The Winx Saga, and I thought it was awesome. Anyways, I like plenty of bad, dumb things.
The fairy
okay,
thing, right?
And this is
That's
even
the fairy
bad and
thing.
dumb.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but like what you like, my opinion means nothing to you and shouldn't in any way influence how you like it. But for my personal sensibilities, AOS, from whether it be the aesthetics of the world, the actual setting, you know, being a long time like Planescape lover in D&D, it very much appeals to that sensibility. But the just sort of like infinite horizons, the endless possibilities, the fact that there's people who are relatively good and struggling against long odds to like actually make a society, the fact that there are powers that wait out the sort of world in this way, like what Sigmar does or whatever, you know, and interesting powers that operate in interesting ways. To me, it smacks much more of like what AOS ultimately is. I made a video about this a long time ago when it changed over and people had a problem understanding the new world, is that Warhammer Fantasy was effectively like low fantasy, right? Like that's what it was. AOS is,
or at least
mythic.
by comparison, right? By comparison.
Yeah, I mean, comparison to like most fantasy. Like again, it was Warhammer Fantasy Battles was definitely like fantasy for babies. Okay, it was like on the lowest possible setting. Okay, there's really creative stuff going on in the world of science fiction fantasy, and this ain't it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I guess would you describe Tolkien as low fantasy?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Fair enough. Because they both seem like adjacent in a way. Although Tolkien's got more the. Well, yeah. Okay. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yes.
Continue.
Whereas AOS is mythic or epic fantasy, which is more akin to Greek myth, right? Mm-hmm. The gods are here, they're interacting, there's wild stuff going on left and right, you know, like people are turning into animals and there's demigod stuff running around and just like, right? Like it's very high. Like what's a farmer in this world? Well, not much, not important, not the focus character, right? Your characters are epic heroes, or Achilles or Odysseus or somebody like that, right? They're not necessarily gods, but they're vast and great heroes or something like that, right? And so to me, that's just like I've always liked Greek mythology, and it smacks very much of like that kind of thing. So that's why it aligns better with my sensibilities.
Yeah, because there's different. I guess this is the final like small closing point. That is a jumping off point for a whole conversation, but there's different types of war gamers, right? Some people like locked in, hard codified. They want the magic and the science to make sense. They want the worlds to make sense. They want maps.
Sure.
They want lineages of kings and queens. They're the historical war gamers that just don't want to play in the World War II or Napoleonic scape, right? They're your fantasy battle people. They're your Horus Heresy people, right? And most people are also often not the biggest fan of Hero Hammer because it takes away from the historical armies fighting armies thing, right?
Sure.
Where, of course, there are people like yourself and perhaps me as well. Over time, I've gotten more and more into it. Where I want to see epic deeds and stupid big things smash into each other and stuff like that. So I guess AOS moved towards that. And now fantasy's back to tick the other box. And we live in a utopia where GW puts out 4 products and you don't need anything else in your life, right?
I mean, it is wild that we live in an age where all these things exist at once. Like, truly, it is a golden age for miniatures. It's the best it's ever been. There's no doubt about that.
My fingers crossed thing is that they all survive ongoing. Like, I think I'd be very sad to see, because obviously the story is all that fantasy never survived very well because it laid stagnant and they weren't managing it very well, right? I love the idea that all 4 of these live and breathe, and they've got their own communities and their own audiences. I like the tribalism that we see online between AOS and fantasy. Or I say this, it's normally fantasy people being bitter and resentful that AOS superseded it for a while, if we're completely honest. And I can see your bitter resentment. If someone come along and killed Magic and started Magic like 3.0, fast forward years and none of the cards worked, it was a mess, I agree, I'd be pissed off too. So I get the anger. But in a way, we now live in a world where you get to just pick the box, tick it, and off you go in a way. It's pretty rad.
That's right. And I mean, I think part of the anger is completely justified, and part of the I'm sure why people won't like some of the things I said about 40K or whatever, and will feel very, or even if they're not angry, they will feel very differently, is because this is a hobby that becomes part of your identity. Like, I am a fairly... a friend asked me recently about something that they knew was coming up for me, and they were like, "How?" It seemed really, really cool, and they're like, "How excited are you for this?" And I was like, "I don't know, a 6." I'm like, a 6? This is like one of the coolest things ever. I was like, "Yeah, okay, like that's fine. It's a thing, right?" Like I don't get that excited about anything, and I don't. My identity is my identity. I'm not relying on any brand or corporation to define my identity, but it's a hobby that does encourage you, and GW certainly plays into this, to invest your identity into your thing. And for obvious reasons, by the way. If you spend hundreds of hours painting a thing, investing a thing, you have put your blood, sweat, tears, and soul into that thing. If it's then invalidated, changed, eroded, reduced in any way, that is not a strike against... That's not just a strike against your interest, your hobby. It's a strike against your identity, because it has become indelibly entwined with who you are. That is what this miniature hobby as a whole ends up doing by its very nature, right? Because of the way that the time, the investment, the love, it becomes a part of us in a way that, like, as much as I love Magic, it just doesn't, right? Like, I build a new commander deck, I'm not suddenly Chatterfang because I build a Chatterfang deck. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not.
Yeah, the allegiances that Magic characters are less like football teams than Warhammer factions are, right? People get really, really behind them. Although I do think Magic has done well, inverted commas. Some people will argue this is actually the downfall, one of the problems with Magic, in leaning into the fact that you can main your legendary character, and it gives people mascots that are probably way more powerful than Planeswalkers were. I don't mean powerful in canon, I mean powerful in terms of a marketing tool. If people don't know this, by the way, Magic recently took away its main characters, the Planeswalkers that you are in summon to help you. They desparked most of them because it's meant to be a big story moment, but also Planeswalkers weren't working as a driving force in the game. Instead, it was the legendary creatures you picked to be the front of your commander deck, and that's them trying to gather some of this momentum where you invest and you relate to your main character that you play in League or Tekken, or your army or faction you collect in Warhammer. But you're right, people spend more time listening to audiobooks and painting their models than the people would do with Chatterfang on Niv Mizzet or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
In some ways, it's sad to see that GW have miniature. Okay, so the last point, and then we're going to shut up and end up the episode, right? But miniature painting is this really interesting and wonderful space that I think more people should get into, because I think it's a really cool and zen. Cool isn't a very good descriptor. It's a zen, therapeutic, self-care thing that I think a lot of people would benefit from utilizing to
completely agree.
Yeah, help themselves. The problem with it, and the sad part that I'm mentioning, is that Games Workshop have such a strong monopoly on it. And I love Warhammer as a setting. I love the Warhammer games, don't get me wrong. And I think AOS is a great system too. But it's sad that you spend hundreds of hours, like you said, getting invested in something, and it's all Warhammer, all the way down, apart from the fringe stuff. This is the monolithic version of games like Magic and Warhammer taking over those spaces. And it's just it's a shame that not enough people engage with miniature painting in a way that isn't completely on.
I'm okay with it, because I think you need the entry point. You need the popular entry point. To me, it's the D&D analogy is very close here. Most people's first role-playing game experience is probably Dungeons and Dragons, but it's probably not their last, right? Like some play D&D for their entire life, and they're perfectly happy.
I was going to say, it's interesting you say that, because I reckon it's probably. I'm going to throw a number out here that's completely out of my arse, by the way, but it's probably 70%, right? 70% of D&D players probably never play anything else.
I don't know about that. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I think most of the D&D players I've known over my life, and again, I've been playing since '89. Everybody I've ever played with has played other games as well.
Do you reckon that's because you play with more entrenched tabletop? I'm going to use the word nerds, but I don't mean it harshly.
Could be.
A lot of the card game players that I talk to have played other card games, and the average Magic player that I know is not the average Magic player, right? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm so deep in the weeds.
Well, it's a good comparison even within my own life. I have no interest in any other card game in the world except Magic the Gathering. Period. I love it. I think it's perfect. I think I love everything about it and what I have, and I've played it for 30 years and been perfectly happy. I have no interest in playing anything else. Okay.
Sure. Well,
I've
it is
looked
the
at other
best
games.
one. So-
Never interested. I've played D&D 5 years longer than I've played Magic, and I play a ton of other role-playing games. On the regular. Okay, not just D&D. Although I do still have a regular D&D game too, but like easily a dozen role-playing games.
I guess the interesting thing is that I think Magic is probably the best. I believe Magic is the best card game. There you go. And I've got there's a lot of bias there and stuff. But I also don't believe that D&D is the best. I played more D&D than any other tabletop RPG. I don't think D&D is the best one by like a large margin, right?
I tend to enjoy it the most for what it is, which is, to me, it's a canvas that allows you to all RPGs are in some way just a canvas that allows you to paint your story. And for me, it tends to be the one that aligns most with the kinds of stories I want to tell, but not always. That's it.
I guess just the point I was kind of like alluding to, and I don't think you're right, it's not a bad thing, but GW have this stranglehold not only on wargaming, but like on miniature painting too.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know.
But
That's a whole
if
other episode.
20% of the people, let's say it's worse than you said. Let's say it's 20% of the people. If 20% of the people eventually go on and play other games, explore other stuff, paint display figures, get into like 75 mil stuff or whatever, that's still an incredible growth for the hobby, right?
Yeah,
It still means that we get a lot of new
absolutely.
people in, and that's a good thing.
I guess the point is like, I guess we are going to end it because I know you've got things to do as well. But I guess the reason I see it as sad in a way, and I fucking love D&D, I love Magic, I love Warhammer. So like, it's not that those games are bad things that we have to like be like, no, there's company things people get into. But I do think their monolithic natures do perhaps drown out some of the competition. They absolutely are important for the growth of this industry and space. But I do wonder if there's a lot of things that never really get the look in that they deserve. People never do the buy-in. Because I'm the same. Like, other war games I'm less tempted to try out because it's like the idea that I won't get a game in at the local store or whatever, right? There's that, not sunk cost fallacy, but like sunk potential play fallacy. There's probably a new term you can come up with there,
Sure. Yeah, there's always a trepidation because it is a social thing. So it has to be. It's hard. It's hard to push it over the limit.
Dude, we could do this for a lot longer, absolutely. And I've very much enjoyed it. We're gonna call it there though, simply because all good things must come to an end, right? I'm sure some Warhammer characters have that in a book somewhere. Let us know if they did in the comment section below. I've been Vince, also known as Pleasant Canary on the internet. This has been Other Vince. You can now be the decider, people at home, which of the Vinces was the good Vince and which of the Vinces was the bad Vince. Because you both said some controversial things. I think I definitely, what did I rag on you mid a face? I've said some things that, either way, we'll see. If you want to check out Vince's other stuff, I'll put links in the description down below as well. And hopefully, just hopefully, he'll come back and we'll just continue this conversation.
Anytime. You say the time, I'm here.
Yes, my friend. Right. Thank you, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.